China learned how to build skyscrapers in 19 days, hospitals in 10, and residential buildings in a day. They built more high-speed railways than the whole world put together, stadiums, tunnels under the sea, and 100-kilometer bridges. The term "made in China" has gone from a joke to ordinary. But how did it happen? How did China go from being a poor village to the world's premier builder and investor? And why is this just the beginning? This is rarely mentioned anywhere, but during the Second World War, China suffered terrible losses. According to some estimates, around 30 million people. This is several times more than the losses of Great Britain, Poland, the US, Italy, Hungary, and France combined. Along the way, the country was subjected to some of the worst war crimes: the use of chemical weapons, the massacre of entire cities, and secret experiments on Chinese citizens. In 1953, the Chinese president Mao Zedong started the first 5-year plan, and we're talking about a poor agrarian country which had gone through a 20-year period of constant wars. There was no talk of any economic breakthrough, not even theoretically. Basically, in the first 5-year plan, they copied the West and the USSR. China has built 595 factories, and the development of industry began. They produced more steel in 5 years than in the previous 50. Also, China's GDP has doubled. This made the first 5-year plan successful. In 1978, China's GDP was less than $200 a year. This is 50 times less than in the US. Translated into modern money, it's the level of Uganda, Somalia, or Afghanistan. By the time China's population had already exceeded 1 billion, but only 200 million Chinese lived in cities, while the other 800 million lived in villages, working for less than $2 a day. So there was a lot of cheap working force. They just needed to be guided somewhere to work efficiently. Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping decided to experiment on a fishing village of 30,000 inhabitants, Shenzhen, and turn it into China's Silicon Valley in 40 years. His genius idea was to create a free economic zone in Shenzhen for foreign companies. Firstly, Shenzhen was built and developed only by foreign investments, and in order for these investments to come, foreigners were free from duties and corporate tax. So even if there is profit or not, you pay nothing. Besides that, China offered a lot of additional economic discounts. Secondly, everything that was produced in Shenzhen was exported for hard currency. And thirdly, Shenzhen wasn't chosen by chance. This city was surrounded by Taiwan and Hong Kong, which were flooded with investments. Thus, in 40 years, the GDP of Shenzhen adds 20% a year and takes off from 40 million up to 400 billion. In simple words, all the foreign builders bring both money and technology. But let's get back to China. On the GDP graph, the crazy growth began in the early 2000s. It has almost turned into a vertical line. So what really did happen in the 2000s? Well, China officially joined the World Trade Organization. Its achievements since then have been truly remarkable. In 2001, China was the 6th largest exporter of goods in the world. Moreover, it later became the world's largest goods exporter. But besides the international export of goods, China is also brilliant at problem solving. For example, in 2005, there was a big problem in China. The distance between cities is huge, so how can you travel quickly? High-speed trains were a must, but they weren't available, so they asked for help from foreign companies. But China just didn't buy high-speed trains as other countries did. They bought the whole technology. For 17 years, China invested $300 billion into high-speed railways, and they will actually build 40,000 kilometers of line from scratch. Just imagine, that's more than the rest of the world combined. Another thing China is good at, as you can remember from the start of the video, is construction. Here is a skyscraper. The Chinese love them. In the last 30 years, they have built as much as all of the US in the entire 20th century. And if you look at the 10 tallest buildings in the world today, half of them are Chinese. But that's normal. Throughout the whole history of mankind, the states were measuring their length of possibility. Therefore, as soon as these opportunities appear, they immediately start building. So, 10 years ago, China decided to show not only how high they can build, but also how quickly. Therefore, they assembled a 57-floor skyscraper in only 19 days. But how is all this even possible? Well, such a construction doesn't even need concrete, only a steel frame. All modules are already made by robots at the factory, and they are simply assembled on the spot like Legos. Using these steel frames, China decided to assemble the tallest buildings in the world, with 2 220 floors in just 90 days. But suddenly a law was introduced that forbids building anything higher than 500 meters. In smaller cities, the height is 250 meters. But why did China decide to ban skyscrapers in a country where the population is already 1.5 billion people? Well, just look at how this 91-meter building in Shenzhen cracks, and people run far away. It turns out that the race putting up a higher building faster has led to major problems with security. Enough with skyscraper. Let's look at the African map. What do you think? In which countries are Chinese construction projects going on right now? And absolutely every one of them. Nigeria gave them 5 yards to build a huge hydroelectric power plant. The largest bridge in Africa is being built with Chinese money in Mozambique. In 2017, the Chinese laid a 500-kilometer long railway in Kenya at a speed of 700 meters per day. Even on the islands of Cape Verde, these tiny islands, China has managed to build houses, a dam, a stadium, and the building of the local parliament. And now attention. How much money does China make by building in Africa? In 2003, they made $2.5 billion. Not bad. But now it's 15 times more. Every year, almost 40 billion. Why China? Why Africa? It's simple. There is no money, but a lot of opportunity. So what are the main advantages of Chinese construction? Firstly, they do it faster than anybody else. Secondly, everything is cheaper. And thirdly, they are happy to build on debt. Here are some examples. Just look at these drilling machines. China can easily manage the construction of tunnels for high-speed railways and metros in some wild condition. They are digging a direct path to Tibet inside the mountain at a height of several thousand meters where they simply don't have enough oxygen. Or the longest tunnel under the sea. Their modern equipment allows them to work at a speed of 10 meters per day, and it only costs 10 million per kilometer. To compare, the United States takes 50 million for the same service. Well, the Chinese are cheap and fast. But why in debt? In 2008, Sri Lanka decided to invest in its own development and build a new port, but they didn't have their own money, so China kindly agreed to build the port. Of course, not for free, but in debt. Unfortunately, the development of business in the port didn't go well, and they went bankrupt. So, Sri Lanka was left to pay more than $1 billion, but they still had no money. However, the Chinese are good guys, so they were ready to forgive the debt in exchange that Sri Lanka leases the port for 99 years. China's rise to global dominance has been remarkable. Its economic success and increasing global influence are reshaping the world order. However, China also faces significant challenges and risks. It remains to be seen how they will address these challenges and what impact will it have on the rest of the world. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments section below. We'll see you in the next video.